in terms of when it comes to calling, and I feel like the calling on my life is actually just to be obedient. Like I'm a Christian, and to where God is leading me. You've never arrived. You don't know it all. I'm always learning, I'll continue to get it wrong. I'll need to continue to adapt and evolve and grow. I think develop a greater understanding of followership, to follow others how you would want people to follow you.
Are you curious about how to spend your life doing what you were born to do? The things that truly light you up and come naturally to you? Well, you're listening to the right podcast. I'm Joseph Bobadilla, and I'm a creative business owner running a content creation agency. On the From the Inside Out podcast, we'll meet and interview high performers from all walks of life. If they've got a great story of how they've built something or are simply thriving, doing what comes from the God-given dreams, talents, and gifts that are inside of them, that's who we're going to talk to. So together, let's find out what it takes and the rewards of building your life from the inside out. So your 16-hour Sunday.
Yes.
Is that what you've just come off the back of?
Yes, Sunday is our big day at work. It's game day. And so we start we probably leave our house at 6 a.m. I work with my husband. And we finished last night around 8:30.
Love that.
Which I guess is only, 14 and a half, but that's okay.
Round it up.
Yeah. we did then have a guest with us that we took out for dinner. So I feel like that counts.
Oh, wow.
So.
Well, like I said, off air, I'm keen to have you here at your peak performance.
Yes.
I'm sure it's going to be a great chat anyway.
Yeah. Maybe if I say something silly, maybe just disregard. Put it down time. I've done a 16-hour Sunday.
Yeah. But thanks heaps for taking the time on your Monday morning to come out, Caitie.
Right.
And it's a pleasure to have you here on my podcast. And for those of the people who are listening to this, wherever you are listening and however you're listening, this is Caitie Wall. And I'm going to let her intro herself in a little bit, but essentially she's the creative pastor at Hillsong Brisbane Central, which is where I attend. Yes. And would love to explore a little bit about how you got there, how it's going, and some of the dreams you've got for the future.
Unreal.
Yeah. So I mentioned this as well, so you're obviously prepared.
Yes.
Very prepared. Yes. The previous guest has asked a question of you. Mm-hmm. And they would like to know, without knowing who you were, do you enjoy what you're doing with your professional life right now? And if it's a yes, what do you feel is the biggest thing you can do with it? What's the nth degree? What's the end game?
Right. I love what I do. I get to champion a whole lot of other people in my role. And it's really fun. Something I really love and kind of is innately me, and maybe will come through later in our conversation, is I just love seeing people win. And I love seeing people do what they feel like they're called to do. And so like a 16-hour Sunday, we were talking about it earlier and kind of joking about it, but like that's my favorite day of the week, because I feel like I just get to release everyone into like their grace zones. And so I love what I do. And I think my role is a really creative role. And so when it comes to creativity and what we do in the space in my organization, in our church, I feel like the sky's the limit, and so we've always been a part of a whole lot of really creative conferences. And what we're a part of here at Brisbane Central, we have day-to-day responsibilities. We're a part of something much bigger, and the fact that we get to contribute to that's really special. And so having a conversation just this week with someone who was up from our Hills campus, which is another one of our churches in Sydney, and just having some conversations about creativity and some spaces that we're hoping to move into the future has been really exciting. So I don't have like a whole lot of detail about what endgame looks like, but I think probably when it comes to what we do and what I do, like I feel like the sky's the limit, and I'm excited for what the future holds. And we've had we've been through a pretty transitional season as a church and as an organisation. And so looking to the future now is actually really exciting.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me, just by hearing that you're currently doing what you feel you're meant to do.
Yeah. Those spaces, and I'm sure you have them in a whole lot of different ways in your job and like in your volunteer work and things like that, where you're just doing something. Like for me, I am a musician by trade, and there'll be times when I'm playing the piano and you're like, oh, I am absolutely created to do this. That feeling of calling, of innate, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this, is really something special.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to tie in really well because that question that Pedro, the previous guest, asked is actually something I'm normally asking someone midway through the podcast.
Yeah, right.
So what we're going to do now...
Pedro.
Thank you, Pedro. What we're going to do now is we're going to rewind.
Yeah, great.
And we're going to try and figure out if we can reverse engineer how we actually got to this point.
Awesome. Sounds good.
So as, I guess, you can go as concisely or however you feel like you want to explain, but maybe could you tell me, bring me all the way back to even your early childhood, where were the sparks, the things that you started to notice that I'm good at this, maybe it was music or however it was?
I was, I think, probably about 8 years old, and I was at my mum was at a friend's house, and you know when your parents stay too long somewhere and you're just like ready to go. I'd played 15 rounds of Mario Kart, like the OG, on like my friend's little Nintendo 64, and I was out of things to do, and my mom was still talking and, you know, finishing her glass of wine like so slowly. It was like painstaking. But I found a piano in this other room, and I went and I sat down at it, and all the letters were on the piano, on the notes, like the A, B, C, etc. And I sat down, and there was a music book in front, and so I correlated like the note that I saw on the music with the note that was written, the letter that was written on the keyboard. Taught myself happy birthday. I never looked back. I sat there probably for a couple hours. It was a late night before when we left, and I was just hooked from that moment on. I think the next week I was in music lessons, and I would spend hours at the piano at my childhood, and it was just my whole world. And so music became my life really quickly. When
you started to explore that, and you were growing up and developing that skill, did you ever feel like that was, call it a career path or a calling on your life at that point?
Never. I think it was just something that I loved to do. And so I'd write songs in my bedroom, and I'd do a whole lot of different things. But it was just like, it was a creative outlet and something that I really loved. I got involved in my church team as like a young 13-year-old girl, and it was just something that I did because I loved it, and I love Jesus, you know?
That's cool. Yeah. And so if that's the case, what were you thinking you were going to do with your life around that teenage?
Oh, guys, I was going to be a primary school teacher, and I'm so grateful to the Lord that did not happen, because I just don't have the patience. But God bless everyone that does, you know? Like, it's a calling, it's a vocation, and I'm like, it is not me. So I'm really glad my life didn't land that way. But music was always just a creative outlet and a passion. You know, I never imagined it would be my life.
Was there anything that was, call it a dream, at that young stage of life at all?
Yeah, well, actually, my mum used to go to these conferences at Hillsong Church called Colour Conference, and it was a women's conference. And she came back, I think I was in year 12, and just trying to decide like what was next, and applied to university. She came back with these brochures to go to Hillsong College and study their music program. And so I ended up enrolling in that, and said, oh yeah, I'll defer a year and I'll go and, you know, have a year of pursuing my passion. And then I'll come back and I'll, you know, get a real job and all the rest of it, go into university. And that just never happened. You know, I got there, and day one, I'm like, this is the rest of my life, you know?
Wow.
And so that was me. And
so from that point to now, was there a journey to getting to what you're doing now?
To what I'm doing now? I think probably if you talk to my husband, and I have conversations about this a lot. So I guess I look after all the music and the worship of our church, and he does like the technical side, all of the production. And so we actually met day one of Hillsong College. Did not like each other, but that's another story for another time. But, you know, we served in ministry together, just volunteering in a whole lot of our little services around Sydney. And it was rough. It was like rough bumping. As in, when I say rough, I don't mean hard work. Like, I don't mean bad. I mean it was hard work, you know, and the equipment was old, but like we just had a passion for what we were doing with a whole lot of people that we were doing it with. And so we just say yes and just show up and serve however we could. And, you know, over time, like we got asked to lead different things, and then we got asked to come on staff at one point. And then when we launched our campus in Brisbane, we were asked to move up and be a part of pioneering that. And so really it's just been saying yes to what what we felt was right per season, you know, and here we are.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
feel like that's another topic that, you know, maybe we could explore today and not, but how did that come about, where I know that today you and your husband Reed are both still serving together?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you guys connected and how that kind of developed as well, and how you're still even now running in the same direction.
Yeah, there's a good book called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, which is a great, which is a good one. I think like for us, like we've always felt like for me since day one of walking through the doors of Hillsong College, like that this was supposed to be the rest of my life. From there, every decision after that was really easy. In terms of when it comes to calling, and I feel like the calling on my life is actually just to be obedient. Like I'm a Christian and to where God is leading me. And so like, you know, when I felt like it was, hey, you're to be planted here, every decision after that's been so easy. And it's been the same for my husband. And so like to fall in love and then to run together building in the same direction is actually not been something that's been really difficult. I don't know if that answers your question.
Would you say there was an alignment of values, or what was there to
100%.
it as well?
Yeah, and which is just, I think probably we definitely have like when it comes to, apart from calling, like our values are like we value hard work, we value consistency, that our yes would be our yes, and our no would be our no. You know, we value championing other people. We value excellence and producing something that is excellent and worth producing. I think for us, we really run in the same lane with a lot of that stuff, and it's made marriage and working together actually really fun.
What's your top tip for maybe couples who are actually working together?
You know how they say separate work and home? Like, that's not a thing. Everything, or it's like, it's not personal, but that's 100% personal. But good try. I would just say, grace towards one another, right? Being kind towards one another, and just having that space to be you apart, like, you know, it's all melded together, but taking intentional space to be apart from the work is great for your marriage.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's really valuable, because there's people in my world and people that I know who are possibly going to be running in the same direction career-wise with their spouse.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually something that I haven't heard too many valuable thoughts on. So coming back to present day, and now your formal title is creative pastor. So what does that actually mean? I know you've hinted at it a few times, but yeah, what does that mean?
So it means at my church, I'm responsible for like all of the music, the worship on a weekend. That looks like building volunteer teams of vocalists, musicians, people that lead the worship, the production teams that my husband's responsible for with like audio, lighting, stage management, video, production. And then like we have like the creative arts area of our team, which are like our photographers, our dancers, like and stewarding not only weekend services but like our special events. Like coming into Christmas, our church does a big Christmas spectacular, which we see a crazy amount, thousands of people through our doors, which is always really special. And so producing that event from the ground up and empowering our teams to do that well is a small snippet of my role.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you find are the activities that at the moment you feel most alive doing in that role?
I think probably coaching people and seeing them win. So I think I had just having conversations with like our team and then also other creative pastors that are at the start of their journey. So we have someone, a friend that is a creative pastor in Southeast Queensland, and had a call with him the other day, was just able to encourage him with some stuff and put some practical resources in his hand to make his job easier, and things that I've learned through like 20 years of mistakes. And I'm like, oh, here, let me help you. So, you know, you don't have to go the long way around and have to learn the hard hard way what I learned. And so it's been awesome to actually be able to resource him and go, here's a resource that's going to help you win in what you feel like you're gifted to do. And same with like our volunteer teams. Like one of my favorite things is seeing you win in your lane, and you do a really good job and feel like you had an impact in a space. I'm like, if I can resource you to do that and do it better each time and feel like you're really making an impact, like I love that so much. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, I really appreciate that on a personal level, and I've observed that, and that's one of the things that I think is just awesome about how you conduct yourself, is that it's easy to approach it, ask for feedback, and feel like you're going to get constructive criticism or building, things that will build up and not tear down, which I think is super valuable. But along the way, obviously, to this point now, you really enjoy this coaching, this developing part of what you do. Where did that come about, or how did you discover that you liked doing that?
I think it's just one of those things that I stumble upon, to be honest. Like, I've never felt like I need to be the quarterback of like a team, right? And I know that there's a lot of different ways that you can, in my sphere where I work, that you can kind of live and run and lead as a creative pastor. And so I'm not a singer. I'm a really bad singer. Just ask Joe. He hears me sing in the music director microphone on the weekend.
I don't think so.
But like that's not my lane. And so, but coaching others is my lane, and it's like something that I'm good at. And so I guess I kind of like learned that I don't need to be the loudest voice in every room or the most prominent voice in every room, but I actually can shape who we are and where we're headed from my seat with my giftings, and then seeing us win together. Like it's never been, I guess working for a church, the platform has never been about me, and it never will be about me. And so that's always just been a life posture. And so I think with that, I've gone, all right, what is my job in this space? It's not to be an owner, it's to be a steward. And so I guess, I don't know, I've kind of always done it, and I love doing it. I feel alive when I do it. Yeah.
How do you continue to develop and hone that?
I love learning. And I think probably there's a quote that you hear thrown about, I don't even know who said it, leaders are learners, right? Or leaders are readers, there's a few of them. But I'm a big advocate for like growing and learning and evolving. And so I think I read a lot of podcasts. I got a new one now to listen to.
Have to share off air, or maybe on air, but anyway.
We'll see. But I just try and hone and learn from different people. And I think I used to think in early days, like I'd walk around going, oh, who can I have be my mentor? You go up to people like, will you be my mentor? But I'm like, I love the thought now. And even as I've gotten older, like the thought of mentorship and learning from people has widened. So it's not one or two people that I'm walking with up close, but there's a whole variety of people, both up close and afar, that I'm learning from every day. And one of the biggest things that I've done in the last probably 3 years to kind of help propel that is to look at where there is white space between gaps in the calendar. So it might be 30 minutes while I'm getting ready, or 15 minutes when I'm driving somewhere in my car, and I'm like, this is like space where I can, and I don't overly like put pressure on myself to do it, because otherwise you go a little crazy, but just going, there's space in my calendar. I can drive to work and I can listen to the radio, or I can drive to work and I can learn something on the way. And so it's just taking the time to do that, and to do that in a smarter way. And as you get older as well, like the pressures of life kind of become a little more demanding. And so getting smarter with that has been helpful along the journey.
I identify with that pretty hard.
Yeah, I feel like you would. I feel like you would.
I'm sure you're familiar with StrengthsFinder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my number one is learner.
Oh, is it? That's awesome.
What's yours?
It's in my 10. My number one is competition.
I can tell.
Tell me why you can tell that.
Just the way that you always want to make sure that things are excellent, but also I can tell the competitive.
My husband won't let me play cards. Like, it's just too violent.
What's your go-to card game?
I think There's a few different names for it, but spit, I think, or I think there's a few different. I don't know what other names are, but it's a hard and fast card game. But I'm banned from the card game. Yeah.
Well, maybe we won't suggest that for our next Connect group.
Yeah, right, good.
Or maybe we do. I'm actually curious if, I might put you on the spot a little bit, but what would you say would be your top 1 to 3 books and top 1 to 3 current podcasts?
I'm going to use my phone. Is that all right?
Yeah, 100%. We can insert hold music here.
Okay, great. I hope it's comic or hold music. I'm going to pull out my Kindle. All right. Oh, man. All of my books are overtly like church leadership. So you'll have to go with me here. And if it's not you, give it a go.
That's all right.
All right. One that has been that has been a game changer for me is The Pastor by Eugene Peterson. So if there's anyone that listens to your podcast that's in pastoral leadership, unbelievable book. He wrote the Message version of the Bible. There's another one by Sean Aniquist called Bread and Wine, and it talks about the power of community around food. Yes, and it has recipes in it, and it's good vibe.
Right.
I'm not a cook at all. Like I cook like 3 things, but it's inspiring.
What we had was good. So, yep.
Yeah. I usually buy takeout for us, but we won't talk about that. Oh man. And Surprised by Hope, which is one by Tom Wright, which is awesome. And then, all right, podcasts.
Here
guys.
We go.
Okay. Here's what I'd say about podcasts. When I've talked about it with different people is, I listen to the Daily Oz, which is on every morning, and it's a news for I guess that appeals probably more so I reckon to 18 to 25s, but I listen to it every morning, and it's good to know what's going on in the world. I want to be connected, and I feel like I want to be informed. And they often, so they'll do like news headlines, and then they'll do a deep dive into like a current world topic or Australian topic or what's going on. And so I listen to that every morning, which has been awesome. Probably some of the greatest leadership podcasts I've listened to is the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast. Unbelievable.
Love him.
And if you don't have time to listen to his full thing, he's got another one which is like short and bite-sized snippets that he has like another host run, which is cool. And then one I've started listening to recently is a TED podcast, and it's called Fixable, with Anne and Frances, I think their names are, and they're 2 women, and they work for TED, and they talk about work problems and how to fix them, which is really cool. So their last one, which I listened to most recently, was When Your Culture Problem is Really a Strategy Problem. And so it's really interesting. And so there's just a couple. I listen to so many, I listen to Craig Rochelle, Jeb and Chavez, like a whole lot of different ones. And then just random true crime or whatever.
You've definitely put me onto some good resources, some good podcasts. I love when you say, hey, here's the one that I think you'd like, and I normally get onto it.
Yeah.
It's always good. So definitely, if anyone's listening to this, I would highly recommend anything that Caitie would be listening to or recommending. Because I know that you love, obviously we've heard throughout this whole chat so far, that you love leadership.
Yeah, I would say with the podcast, not everything's for everyone. And so there'll be things that don't resonate or things that you don't agree with. And so what I say to my husband often, because he'll hear something he doesn't like and be like, I'm never listening to that again, is take the meat, spit out the bones.
Yep.
And so I'm finding that more and more with podcasts I'll listen to something and I'm like, I don't know that I agree with that, which is great because it means you're thinking for yourself. But I would just encourage us to take the meat, spit out the bones,
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
Appreciate
carry
that.
on.
No, all good. Leadership is definitely the theme that I'm hearing a lot, and I've always known that to be the case of the things that I think is is your strength. What would you say through your practical experience first would be some of the best advice that you could give people who are aspiring leaders in any organization? It could be pretty general or it could be specific.
Oh man, that's a big question. I think probably just the first thing is that you've never arrived. You don't know it all. I've been doing what I've been doing. I've been on staff with Hillsong Church for 13 years. Been working as a volunteer leader for 18, 19 now. I've led in a lot of different capacities. I'm always learning, always. Like, I'll continue to get it wrong. I'll need to continue to adapt and evolve and grow. And so I just would encourage any leader, I think a couple things is just to stay grounded and to stay humble and to stay willing to learn from those that you lead. I think probably to be encouraged, to remind yourself that it's always day one. That there is more innovation, that there is more to do. And I think probably the other thing I would say with leadership is, I think, develop a greater understanding of followership. So to follow others how you would want people to follow you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I have people that I'm accountable to, my bosses, and even people that lead me in a volunteer capacity. How I feel like how I follow them is a reflection or then seeps into how my volunteers will follow me and the people that I'm leading. And so I always want to make sure that I'm an easy person to lead, you know, not just like the leader that expects everyone else to follow me.
100%.
You know?
That's kind of some equivalent to how you do small things is how you do all things, or... That's really valuable. And what about, would you say, is there anything that comes to mind that maybe is advice that was given to you that you've implemented and actually seen work?
Yep, I would say something is that working with people, I think leadership would be easy if there weren't any people on the other end.
AI.
Yeah, it was AI when you did it. I'm joking. And so working with people is the greatest privilege and also the greatest obstacle of leadership, because people aren't robots, but we want them to bring themselves to the space, like, you know. And so I would just say that I think someone once said to me that, like, is it's not a one size fits all approach for everyone that you lead. And often, like, it would be easier if it was like, we're all going to do this way in this time frame, and we're all going to teach and learn in this capacity. But everyone's different, so taking the time to get to know people and understand the people that you're leading and be able to speak to them in their language, people that you're leading, but also people that lead you. One of the greatest things that I ever heard was, like, when it came to I've had a whole lot of different bosses over the years, so this isn't reflective of one particular person, but someone said to me, the best thing you can do with them is sit down and have a meal and get to know them. And I know that in the corporate maybe in the corporate space that might seem weird, or in a few different spaces, like, I wouldn't go out to dinner with my boss, like, you know, but, like, understanding how they tick and how they're wired is going to make your life a whole lot easier, and build that relationship. And when you sit down, you eat with someone, you're like, oh, I actually like them. You know, they're good human for the most part, rather than just the person that leads you or the person that you're leading. And so I think, like, breaking bread together and sitting down and getting to know how one another tick, and then being able to communicate in that language, taking the time to go the long route with people, and communicate to them in a way that they understand. Like, how I communicate to you might be different to how I communicate to another one of, like, our volunteers. And I want to take the time to get to do that, even though it takes me longer, because I know it's going to resonate with you more and make it easier for you to function in the space that you're responsible for.
Do you follow any particular frameworks, you might call it, or even are there any ways that you would say people can identify how to get to know someone, like, within that space?
Right.
Like, when you're, like, do you use anything, any profiling or anything that's come to mind over the years, or things that you go, oh, I'm going to approach this person like this because they are...
Right. No. There's probably a whole lot of different things. I know there's a whole lot of, like, you know, we talked about Clifton strengths, and there's Patrick Lencioni has a whole lot of, like, really great leadership stuff. And something that we did with our key team recently was Working Genius.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it. I think my brother's church also does that.
Yeah. It really helps, like, kind of helps you understand, like, if you're working in a leadership team, how one another operate. Where their working geniuses are, where their frustrations are, and where they're just competent but they don't draw a lot of joy from it, and allowing people to live and work and bring what they bring in their genius space you know. But when it comes to like our volunteer teams, like I don't have like a huge strategy other than just like get to know people and then try and communicate with them in their language in a way that they understand.
So it's really building relationships, not seeing people as assets.
Totally. Yeah. Like as soon as someone's like just a means to an end for you, like you're going to quickly find, there's a quote that says like, if you don't have anyone following you as a leader, you're just taking a walk, you know? I've definitely taken a few walks in my time. And often it's because people are just like, they're assets or, you know, and you're not treating them like humans that have value, you know? And so getting to know people and valuing them for what they have to bring and their story, because the reality is they're positioned, like you're not the main character of the world. And like, I think we all walk around like we are. Like, and everyone's secondary. I'm like, everyone's the main character in their own story. And so valuing people is the end game, is huge, and making them feel valued and like they're winning in life, you know, is what I'm passionate about.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure nowadays you've got Ted to come on a walk with you.
That's
anyway.
Right.
So
yeah, our dog Ted, yes.
Kind of spinning back and thinking about where you are now and when you were a lot younger, not really knowing how life was going to turn out. What do you think 13-year-old Caitie would say to you now? What do you think she would think of what you're doing now?
Oh man, I think I couldn't even dream that I would be doing what I'm doing now. And you know what's interesting, if I can tell a quick little story, is I was like, we've been doing, my husband and I, what we're doing now for like 20 years, right? And so there's days, and I think anyone that was honest with themselves for a minute, that's been doing what they've been doing for a while, that it just feels like a slog, or it just feels ordinary, you know. But the reality is that you're actually walking and living in the days that you dreamed of one day, you know. Like I could never have dreamed when I was a little girl like that I would be doing what I was doing, you know, or what I am doing. And I was in a rehearsal, and it was late. It was a Thursday night. It was 10 p.m. I was locking up our facilities, and I see these people sitting on a bench outside. And at first I was like, oh, do I need to call security? Because there's some interesting characters in our neighborhood. But I realized it was like some of our team. And so I went out, and they're sitting in the dark, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, like, we come here once a fortnight just to encourage one another for an hour and to practice, like, you know, our craft in front of one another, because we want to be doing what you're doing one day. And yeah, and it got me, because I'm walking in the thing that they're dreaming of, you know. And so, man, I'm like, far out, like just cultivating a continual posture of gratitude is key for me in my day-to-day. But I think probably what I would tell 13-year-old Caitie or 18-year-old Caitie is just to stay grounded and just to remain grateful and just to trust that things will come together. Like when I was younger, I often used to wonder, like, or be frustrated at my strengths and go, I don't understand how this all works together. But like life has a funny way, and God has a funny way of pulling it all together, like, and going. And so I think for each human, like I believe that we're created with great intention, and it'll work out. And it's like, just trust the process.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For those people you saw, the team that were sitting out there who said one day we want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
What's some practical advice that you might be able to give them?
I think probably saying yes to the things that don't seem super glamorous. I think probably from afar my job looks glamorous to some. It's really not. But I think saying yes, I said yes to the things that were not super glamorous, like the bump ins and bump outs that we did of our smaller venues in the earlier days. And we used to build, like, it's embarrassing. We didn't have the budget for like microphone stands. And so we would like, we would make them out of like bits of like drum cymbal stands, and then like a guitar case, and then like that would be like, and then you'd like, we had like at one point a styrofoam cup that we put the microphone in. It was terrible.
That's genius.
I'm like, I can't believe that's like what we presented on a Sunday. But like we just made it work and made it happen, and we showed up at the things that no one else wanted to show up at, and that's where we learned, and that's where we developed character, and that's where we developed skill set. And so it's saying yes to the things that don't look so glamorous, and actually allowing yourself to learn in the smaller spaces as well, because there's mistakes that I made in the small that I'm really glad that I didn't have to make on a big platform, you know. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Brilliant advice. This has been an amazing chat. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you again for taking the time to come here and to do this and to share your wisdom from what you've been experiencing, what you're doing at the moment. You don't know who the next guest is going to be on this podcast. Okay. And to be honest, I don't either.
Yeah.
But if you were to ask whoever's coming on next a question, what would you want to know?
Okay. What are you too scared to do that you know you need to do next?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing the answer to that.
Could be in business, could be a personal life. Yeah.
That's so cool. I'm excited to hear whoever it is answer that question.
Unreal. Yeah.
So if people want to know more about what you're doing, perhaps get in touch, contact, let's say they want to do what you're doing or feel like they want to just get in contact, how can they do that? How can they find you online?
Yeah, I'm not a big online presence, but you can find me on Instagram at Caitie Wall, CAITIEWALL.
Thanks so much again, Caitie. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
Pleasure. Love it. Thanks, Joe.